Welcome to Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton, where we equip pastors to take their churches from declining to thriving by pointing them to a new future and a new hope. Join us weekly for encouragement and practical advice in your pastoring journey.
We are delighted to be back with you again for another session of Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton. My name is Dan Hurst. Mark Clifton is sitting here with me, and in this fabulous podcast studio over there, sitting over there, you notice that we moved him away with a little bit of a partition.
He's across from us, yes.
That's Mark Halleck over there, ladies
Mark
and gentlemen.
Halleck from Denver. Say hi, Mark.
Hey,
to the people.
guys. So good to see you.
Calvary Church.
I think my hugs, I was trying to...
Yeah, we moved
had
you
to put up
away.
There was
wall.
a reason. There was a reason.
So you can't touch us.
You got
But-
away from me.
But we are at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we're grateful that Dr. Jamie Dew has let us be here and have beautiful use of this amazing podcast studio. They have a radio station here, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great station.
So we're part
actually.
of their radio. In fact, they're putting this on the air, I think, right now. This is going out all across the country into all the ships at sea, by the way. No, I don't know. We're here for the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, I know you're hitting us later in the summer, and you're thinking, dude, they've been there for a long time. No, we actually have come home, but we left the Southern Baptist Convention, came over here, and we are doing a series of podcasts because we, being Kyle, who runs our board, Mark, Dan, and myself, we just love to be in the same room.
That's right.
So we're all here together
That's right.
in the same room. And the one man that's not with us, but he's with us in spirit, is Dr. Tom Rayner, ladies and
we love
gentlemen.
him.
Thank you, Tom. I know you listen to every podcast twice, so grateful just because you
And has subscribed.
subscribed,
Yeah.
but he's just worried about the competition. So anyway, thank you.
No, he's
Yeah,
not.
I'm sure we're a real threat.
Yeah, we're a real threat to Dr. Rayner. But Dr. Rayner wrote a book that has become, it is a standard for church revitalization. I mean, he has pretty high expectations of his work, frankly, but this went beyond his expectations. This book became an unbelievable resource and bestseller for Lifeway. It was called The Autopsy of a Deceased Church. It came out several years ago. He looked at some dying churches and said, why did they die? And these are the common facts he found. Now listen, these are important. You say, well, my church isn't about to die. Well, no, not a single church that ever died thought they were going to die, but they did, and they didn't recognize these symptoms. So we're going to place these in the show notes, but take a listen. And this is one of those many podcasts. Pastor, you probably want to put links to this and send it to all of your leadership, your deacons, your Sunday school leaders, so we can say the things that need to be said that perhaps you don't need to be saying right now. So these we're going to take two parts. We're going to look at 5 of them in this episode. 5 of the discoveries of a church that died. What did we find in the autopsy that brought this death on? And these are going to be really good. The first one is called a slow erosion. In other words, it's not as though they just hit a wall and died. It took place over a long period of time, so much so they didn't really even notice they were dying. It's as though they became weaker and weaker, but it was happening over such a slow amount of time that it just didn't really seem like it was happening. And it was such a slow erosion. And Satan is so good about that. And here's how you know a slow erosion. If maybe some of your church members have children and they leave and they go away and they get married and they come back a few years later and they walk into the same church and they go, whoa, what happened here? Where is everybody?
Yes.
This place looks abandoned. The parking lot doesn't look like it used to. They don't see a slow erosion when they walk right back in. They see something that's changed drastically while the 5 or 8 years they've been gone. But one of the things Rayner discovered in dying churches is they are victims of a slow, over time erosion. You got any thoughts on that, Halleck?
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, it can happen. It's like unnoticeable. And I think I look at it from the standpoint of, as a leader, again, helping a congregation to recognize this slow erosion that has taken place. Because, like you said, so often we don't know. It's true with our bodies.
It is true.
It's true in so many areas of life.
Yep.
And so it's this, you're moving toward death, you don't even realize it. And so we've got to help people begin to see this erosion as a real thing.
Right.
And yet, by God's grace, He can reverse this in a local church.
Right.
Let me toss a softball up there.
Go ahead. So, all right, I'm ready.
This is a softball for you guys.
All right.
What causes erosion? When we think about it from a physical sense, we think about floods, we think about winds.
Right.
What are the things that cause erosion to happen?
Apathy toward the gospel, apathy toward the mission, apathy toward confusion.
Theological drift, I would say.
Oh, theological drift is huge. I think personality, personal preferences.
Yep.
I think
Division.
I think a lack of vision. All of those things. I think a lack of love for the community.
Yep.
I think also sometimes we'll talk about this. I think later, maybe the next episode, but too many pastoral transitions over and over and over can cause that erosion.
I'd say a lack of intentional, persistent prayer.
Oh, absolutely. No, those are all good.
Yeah, all those.
Yeah, absolutely. A lack of prayer. I mean, all those things. A lack of, and we're going to do a whole podcast on this one too. A lack of commitment to reach children and youth.
Yep.
And so many times, well, we don't have any children and youth. Well, what's in your budget for children and youth? Well, we don't have anything. Well, why not? Because we don't have any children and youth. Well, you ought to put it in your budget. You ought to do something.
Right.
So a slow erosion over time. And that's a good question, Dan. That was really great.
And I would say at the heart is a lack of love.
Yeah.
A lack of love for one another, a lack of love for the community, as Mark said, but a lack of love. If you want to see a church that's eroding, you see a church that's filled with bitter people, angry people,
right?
People that are not unified in the joy of the gospel.
But again, Satan is so subtle and so smart. It's a slow erosion.
It's a slow erosion.
So week to week, month to month, you don't really even notice it.
Yeah.
I talked in the last episode about going to churches that asked me to help them with the revitalization, and the sanctuary seats 500, and there's 50 in there, and I walk in and think, wow, this seems really vacant, and they think, well, no, it's not as many as it used to be, but this is us.
It's not bad.
And I mentioned, do you want to move into the fellowship hall? Oh no, we want to stay in here. Because again, it happened so slowly over time.
That's right.
They didn't. So slow erosion. Number 2, this is a big one. Their past is their hero.
Yeah.
So they look at the past as the greatest days they've ever had, and they think those were the days, and that is what they really honor and respect. And they talk about the past as though it's a hero, rather than Jesus being the hero or the future being the hero.
Right.
The past is the hero. And it's a hero because they value it so much, they don't want you touching it or changing it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's usually, wouldn't you say, Mark, it usually is connected to a particular pastor many times.
Absolutely.
Or a program.
Yep.
That in their minds, this is when we were hitting a home run, man.
Right.
This is where, so we got to get back to whatever we were doing, or that kind of pastor.
We might have had a bus ministry in the 70s, and we had 300 in Sunday school. Or we had a pastor who was just, he could just preach down the stars and he could do evangelism, and we had 300 in worship. Now we're down to 75. And everything, they look back and those glory days, as they would call them.
The glory days.
And they see that as it becomes their hero. It becomes their legend in some ways.
Yes.
And man, you've got to get beyond that and past that.
Yeah.
But many churches don't. And when you value the past that much, then you're really going to be cautious about changing anything, even the design of the building, the design of the structure of the worship service, the governance, anything that might need to make some changes, because you value the past so much.
Yep.
You don't want to do anything to harm that past.
Right.
And so being caught up and hung up on the past, forgetting those things which are behind, looking forward to things which are forward.
And that's where, as a pastor, you want to, again, as we mentioned, you want to honor the past. There's ways to honor the past, while at the same time, from a shepherding perspective, helping them to not idolize the past and to move forward in a new future that the Lord has, because He's doing a new work. He's doing a new thing.
I think sometimes we are so afraid of the past that we don't honor it, and because we're afraid that if we honor it, then history will repeat itself, that type of thing. Yeah. One of the things I do when I go into the revitalization situation is I say, tell me about the future. How do you see the future? Tell me what it is that you see. What's your vision for the future? And I actually have them write these things down. Yeah. And then I come back and I say, tell me about your past. What about your past can we build on to get to the future?
Oh, that's good.
Because if those things you do honor.
That's right.
But there are some things in your past that we can't build on. They're not going to get us to the future.
Yeah,
so be honest. What about the things of the past will help us to get to the future? It's interesting how many of those things they do let go because they realize they were good at one time. They're no longer good.
And I think sometimes when we say they make the past the hero, they feel like we'll never be there again.
Right.
It's all over.
And that's where hopelessness comes in.
Well, and sometimes when you look at your teams, your baseball teams or your football teams, and you realize, well, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, there was a time they won more Stanley Cups than anybody, but you kind of look at it now and go, are they ever going to win another one? The past, it's all about the past, not about the future. I have no idea how that worked in there, but anyway, it did.
That's good.
Okay, slow erosion. The past is a hero. Number 3 on Autopsy of a Deceased Church. And number 3 thing that you have to look out for is the church refuses, and that's an important part, refuses to look like the community.
Wow.
In other words, the community has no doubt changed a great deal, and the church doesn't want to reflect the community. They wish the community were different.
Why do they refuse?
Because
what's undergirding that?
Because it would make them make some significant changes in the way they approach people, the way they conduct their worship services, perhaps the way they plan their ministry, the way they spend their ministry money, the way they let people use their building. They'd make some tremendously drastic changes if they wanted to look like the community. Who leads them in worship? Who leads them in Sunday school? Who leads them in other things? And so they like the way the things are, because there's some wonderful comfort in the familiarity of what we know and the control that we have. Look, for a lot of older people, the one thing that they really are feeling in their life is a lack of control. Yeah. Their health is getting worse, and they can't control it. I mean, they can take medication and get surgeries and all that, but they're always seeing doctors, They can't control their children and grandchildren anymore.
Friends are dying.
Friends are dying. Their kids and grandkids have moved away. Friends are dying. They don't have the job they used to have. In fact, the job they used to have may not even be a job anymore. So no one respects them in that sense in the workplace. But there's still one place, right, where they show up and they're on that finance committee, and we're not going to renew that copy lease unless I say you can.
Yep.
And, I have some authority here, and I'm considered important here. And if we start reflecting the community, then other people will have that, and I'll lose that as well. And so I think that's one of the reasons they refuse, that Satan uses that in our hardness of our heart to get us to refuse to look like the community. And frankly, oftentimes the community may have different worldviews. They may have different ethnicities. They may have different backgrounds, even a different social economic status.
Educational.
And look, in our flesh, all right, we want to be with people like us.
Yeah.
In our flesh, we want to hang out with my folks, right? And I don't want to hang out with people who aren't like me. But that's in our flesh. Yeah. And so we're told to go and to make disciples and to go even to Samaria. You can't go around it. You got to go there. And so when you look at a church and it does not reflect its community and it refuses to make the changes to do that, that is a huge symptom of church that's going to die.
One of the things I've noticed with a lot of churches, and this seems to be prevalent, I wish I could say that it's not like it used to be, but it seems to be worse, and that's churches that they refuse to look like their community, but they want to look like that other community.
That's so true.
And so let's start reaching them.
Boy,
They'll
so
drive,
true.
3, 4, 5 miles, to come to our church,
Yep.
but let's reach them. And they'll start doing mailers. They'll go out. I asked a church the other day that they sent out a bunch of postcards. I said, how many did you send out around the church? Oh, well, we've tried to reach them before. And so they were going to try to reach another community. And I thought, that's not going to bode well.
And I know
that's
we've
good.
said this many times, but it bears saying again. Sunday morning, go to your church and on Sunday school and put your people in the little classrooms where they all belong. And then take a couple of your leaders and drive to the nearest McDonald's or Quick Trip or something near your church. And if the people in that McDonald's don't look a lot like the people you just left in those Sunday school classes, you probably have a problem. You need to reflect your community.
Yeah.
And the first thing you do is you need to love that community, as we said, and that'll lead you toward reflecting it. But a church that refuses, we're just not going to let these people use the building.
Yeah.
We're gonna put a chain across the parking lot, and we're not letting anybody in, and we're not going to change the way. We're not going to change our music. We're not going to change our children's ministry, or we're not going to approach anything differently. Then you're not going to make it. So church refuses to look like community. Number 4, your budget turns inward. The majority of your budget is focused on inward things, not outreach and outwardly things. What might that look like?
So this is like all of a sudden the top priority isn't our local missions and what we're doing to reach the community. This is, what about my Sunday school line?
Yeah.
Right? What about my small group? What about my whatever event?
What about the flower committee?
What about the flower
the
committee?
fellowship
That's
committee?
right.
What about making sure we have some updated things in the church
That's right.
building?
Yep.
When do we make the choices that say, you know what, we're not going to maybe update all these things, but we're going to try to do some more ministry and outreach in the community?
Yeah.
When are we going to start budgeting things for people who may never come to our church but have needs in our community?
Exactly.
And because Jesus loves them and we love them, we want to meet those needs.
That's right.
I mean, what does our budget look like? How much of it is spent on ourselves and how much it is spent on our community? Now, look, many of these churches are very, very faithful in their mission giving.
That's right. Yep.
And God is blessing them for that. And we're grateful for it, obviously.
Yep.
Give
Yep.
10, 12% to local and associational missions, obviously. But what do you do your church locally?
Yeah. Yeah.
You also need to be doing something yourself to your neighborhood right there around you.
That's right.
And so in your budget, and we talked a moment ago about the fact that you don't have any children, so we don't put any money in a children's ministry. Well, how about budgeting for children and ask your state convention or your association to help you plan some children's events that summer in
That's
your
right.
parking lot,
Yep.
or some youth events. Put some money in there
Do
to
a
try
soccer
to
camp. Do something.
do a soccer
Yeah,
camp.
that's
Talk
right.
a little about some ways to reach kids.
Yeah, that's right. All these things. And this is what the beauty of partnership. As Southern Baptists, we're better together. There are church plants that your church could partner with that would love to come on and put on a vacation Bible school. You might say, not long ago I was talking to a church that's down to about 25 people, and they haven't had kids in years. And we started dreaming about doing vacation Bible school. And they said, well, Mark, we don't have any kids. I mean, our grandkids don't even live here. I said, but listen, I walked in this church and I'm looking around this neighborhood. There's kids all over the place. Like, what if we did one for them? And they just hadn't thought about it. And so what's so cool is they're partnering with a local a church plant not far away. They're going to come on and do a VBS for the community, and they're going to have 15, 16 kids. Praise the Lord.
So when in Warnell Road, that's the replant we did in Kansas City, in about our third or fourth year, we still didn't have any money in the bank at all, and we usually didn't have enough money to make payroll at the end of the month, and I was the only one getting paid. So that means they didn't pay me till the following Sunday. It was just the way it was. It was a very expensive building, $3,000 a month for utilities and insurance, and we were running about 40, 50 people. We were growing, but it was just tough, and I was bivocational. So one Monday night, we had a meeting of our administrative team, and our finance guy said, hey, we got a really good month this month. We ended with $500, a little over $500 in the bank, which is something we'd never really done before. Now, I don't mean we had 500 in one account and thousands in another. I mean, that's the only money our church had was $500. While we're in that meeting, we get a call from the vice principal of the high school down the street. He says, I know you told me if you ever need anything to call you. We're going to have our first ever, because the school had just reopened. It had been closed for decades. We're going to have our first ever awards assemblies tomorrow morning. I would like to give every kid, he said, there's about, I think, 80 of them or something. I'd like to give every one of them a candy bar. And he said, I can't use petty cash to buy candy. You told me if I need anything, could you? I said, sure. So I hung up the phone and I told our administrative team, I said, hey, can we, I'm going to go buy some candy bars. And one of the guys on the team, he said, well, how much do we have in the bank? And our guy, our 80-year-old, sweet 80-year-old treasurer that I'd baptized said, well, we got just over $500. And do we have a debit card? Yeah. I said, well, the Subway's still open down there. We could go down and we could buy whatever, 80 gift cards at $5 a piece or whatever. I think it's about $400, whatever it was. It was about $400. And they said, okay, let's go do that. There was a church that spent $400 of its last $500 on kids that'll never come to their church.
Wow.
Right? I mean, and I could give you many stories, not just my church, other churches. Does your church have a heart to be radically, ridiculously generous with your time and your money to bless the community? Or are you turned inward?
That's
You
right.
got to put money away, take care of yourself. I'm telling you, when Rainer did his autopsy, that was an absolute symptom of a dying church, a lack of generosity, because everything about the gospel is generous. The last one for today, and then we'll pick up next session. Slow erosion. Past is our hero. Church refuses to look like community. Our budget is turned inward. And finally, the Great Commission, Mark, becomes the Great Omission.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. We stop, and this is where, as a Baptist, but not just Baptists, as Bible-believing Christians, you can say you believe in reaching the lost all day long. You can give to missions, and yet the reality is, when I look at your life and look at the church, nobody's sharing their faith anymore. They may say, well, there was a time where I did that. And there might be a lot of reasons. There might be insecurities, like, I don't know, many people, who am I going to talk to, whatever. But they're not seeing people come to faith. You're not seeing baptisms anymore. And so this is well worded. I mean, the Great Commission becomes the Great Omission. And again, I want to assume the best and not the worst. I want to assume the best about, in a lot of these dying churches, you have God's people who are regenerated, they're saved, they're born again, they're filled with the Spirit. They want to see the Great Commission lived out. They want to be part of it. But you as a pastor, man, you've got to help bring some fire back, some passion, some vision. You've got to create some pathways for that 80-year-old to be able to engage lost people. And I see that as a challenge, but it's a wonderful challenge. The problem is many churches that are declining here, that's just the reality. The Great Commission, the fire to reach the lost, the whole reason why that church was started in the first place is now a distant memory.
And here's what I really want people to hear, so I hope you're still listening. Yes, your church may, and gratefully that you give to the Lottie Moon Christmas offering, the Annie Armstrong Christmas offering, and you Easter offering rather, and you give every year to the cooperative program, every week to the cooperative program, and through that you fund 10,000 missionaries all around the world and in North America, and chaplains, everything we've talked about. You do so much. But Pastor, if you never celebrate that, if you never share those stories of missionaries around the world that our church is supporting, if you never pray for those missionaries, if you never have their pictures on the screen, if you never check with your state and your convention association and say, hey, when's there going to be a missionary in our neighborhood can come talk to us, you're not building in your church a passion for the Great Commission.
Amen.
It's one thing to send a check, and I'm grateful. We're all missionaries are grateful you do it. But you need to build a passion, and you do that by praying for missionaries and talking about missionaries and celebrating missions and what God is doing in other places and helping your congregation realize, man, the church exists beyond your parking lot.
That's right.
Okay?
That's
and so
right.
for churches that just don't see that, they are in a dying situation. Yep. But man, you can even be in a really numerically small church that can celebrate every week what God's doing around the world.
And I would say this is just a nugget. At least once a month, start having a missions moment.
There you go.
In your service.
Yep.
At least once a month.
Yep.
You don't have to do it every week, but once a month, and you do exactly what Mark just said. You highlight a missionary, you tell the story, you celebrate it, you pray for them, and you remind your people this is what it's all about.
And you call out missionaries.
Yeah.
You can have a church of 20 people, but he may be calling a missionary out of that church. We've gotten away.
Right.
Be a Great Commission church, man, not a Great Omission.
I got to tell you guys a story about this, and we're out of time, but I want to close with this. Having grown up on the mission field, you talk about that mission moment and sharing, what's going on, and went on for years and years and years. I mean, we would get letters and everything, particularly from GAs. Girls Auxiliary would send us letters that we're praying for you. We don't expect an answer. We're praying for you.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't expecting an answer to the letter, but it came across like. But anyway. But my dad started doing something in the first church that we started, which was Primera Iglesia Bautista, which was First Baptist Church of Tegucigalpa. And he started doing something like this, a mission moment from that church to remember the people that were giving back in the States.
Wow.
And to thank the Lord for them, It was...
That's great.
I love that.
Yeah. It was amazing,
Wow.
I mean, these people were so grateful, that they were part... of these people's passion for ministry. Wow. And so it works both ways.
It does.
Amen.
And Satan doesn't want us to be about the Great Commission.
That's right.
So there you go. Okay, that's episode 1. Coming up, part number 2 on Autopsy of a Dying or Deceased Church. And we will see you then, right, Mr. Hurst?
Yes, wear gloves.
Take us... Get a scalpel.
I don't know why
Take us.
that.
I don't know
sorry.
neither. Take us home. Good night, everybody. Good night, Jill.
Thanks for joining us today on Revitalize and Replant. This podcast is brought to you by the North American Mission Board, where we help dying or struggling churches regain health for the glory of God and the good of their communities. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. To learn more about becoming a replanting pastor or to explore resources about revitalization for your own church, visit churchreplanters.com.